Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I've had a ton of questions on how to properly get rid of those villagers that you just don't want in your New Horizons island. Now, there are a lot of rumors going around on exactly how this process works, but today we're going to go over every single way that you can efficiently get rid of villagers on your island, regardless of if you're fast traveling or not. These are going to help everybody that is looking to get rid of villagers and invite new villagers to your island. So I do hope that everybody enjoys this video. Now, there's going to be a lot of things that we need to discuss, but first we're going to go over the non-time traveling method, and then we're going to go over a couple other ones that are actually going to be really interesting for many of you out there. But let's go ahead and check our map here and look for the ones that we want to get rid of. Now, there is a rumor going around that you cannot kick out your original person from your island unless you use an amiibo card. Now, Cherry is one of our original members of the island, and I have not been able to kick her out, but I cannot confirm nor deny that rumor as of yet, because the second islander that I had originally, I actually don't remember who that was. I don't know if it was Rhonda or not. But I believe that my original second villager has moved out, so we don't have to worry about that right now. But we're going to go through the entire process of kicking out a villager. I would like to get rid of Jambette, who lives over here, so we need to do a couple things to make this happen. First and foremost, you do not want to do anything to this villager. You don't want to talk to her. You don't want to hit her with a net. Give zero attention to the villager that you want to move out of your island. The next thing you're going to want to do is, well, a couple different things, really. So let's actually see if she's in here. She is not in here. If she was in here, you could walk into the house and then leave that particular house, because that will help the neglect rate go up, because you're not actually interacting with her. You're walking in and then walking out, and they get a little offended by that if you don't talk to them, so that will help. But if you don't want to deal with going in and out of the house, the next best bet is to completely fence in the house so they cannot go anywhere. Now, that is exactly what we're going to do to Jambette's house right now. So you're probably asking yourself right now, why are we locking them outside of their house? Couldn't we just ignore them? Yeah, you could let them roam around your village and ignore them. She looks perfectly happy right now, but trust me, soon she is going to get very upset, because now not only are you not interacting with her, but she cannot interact with anyone else in the village unless they specifically like walk up to the fence and get super lucky for an interaction. To be quite honest, the best way to do this would be to have her house moved completely to a secluded area on your island, fence it in, and lock her away from everybody until she leaves. This will drastically increase the odds of her leaving. And then not only do you want to make sure that your villager isn't interacting with you or anybody else, but you're going to need to make sure that you talk to every other villager that you want to keep. So do not talk to any villagers that you do not want to keep, and talk to every villager that you do. Now, even during this whole process, there is that whole chance that a villager that you don't want to go will still decide to want to go. The system is just set up like that, but what we're going through right now is the best case scenario for getting rid of a villager without time traveling, or obviously using the amiibo cards, which is the way the game is really programmed to try and get you to buy amiibo cards to get your favorite villagers and kick out the ones you don't. But if you follow these steps very precisely and never interact with the villagers that you don't want, eventually they will decide to leave. Like, if we didn't want Mint right now, we'd just walk by and completely ignore her. Don't touch her, don't hit her with a net, don't push her around, just completely ignore them. You don't need to complain to resident services, because that does absolutely nothing, except for one key point in the game that we're going to get to, where talking to resident services can be very important for getting a new villager on your island. We're going to get into that in a few minutes, but basically just go around and make sure to talk to every villager that you do want to keep to ensure that there's a chance that they won't leave. So that's going to set you up for the best case scenario. Now, this could take a day, it could take a week, it could take a month for the villager that you don't want to leave to finally get fed up with their seclusion and leave your island. It is not an easy process. It's not by any means a short process, but this will set you up for the best case scenario if you don't want to use amiibo cards and you don't want to time travel. Now, on average, oh, there we go. It takes about 15 days for a villager to finally decide to leave. And that thought bubble that just popped up over her head is when you finally want to talk to the villager. And this process takes typically about 15 to 17 days. Sometimes it'll happen sooner, sometimes it'll happen later. But more often than not, right around the 15-day mark, they're finally going to have that thought bubble over their head. You don't want to interact with them when they have the purple haze over the head. Very specifically, a white cloud thought bubble. And then once you talk to them, they're finally going to be like, yo, dog, I want to go. And then you can be like, no, dog, don't go. Or say, what we want to do, maybe it's time you left. This process works extremely well, and you're going to need to remember that 15-day mark for the process we're going to get for 100% removing villagers from your island at a later tip in the video. So now that she's leaving, it's going to take... there's one very important thing that you want to do from here. So now that she's leaving, it's going to take a day before she starts packing up. And then when that day comes for them to pack up, you can trade your villager with another person. They can come to your island and ask them to live with them, or they will leave the next day. Now, this part is very important. When they decide to leave, if you are connected to the internet and you have a lot of friends and they have villagers leaving, there is a pretty significant chance that your friend's villager that left will then move into your island without giving you a choice in the matter whatsoever. So when you finally get a villager to leave, once they hit their packing day and you're going to be done playing for the day, turn off your internet. And when you log into Animal Crossing again, make sure you are not connected to the internet to avoid a friend's villager moving into your island. So that way you can go use Nook Miles to find your own. That is a very important tip, because this is a very long process and you do not want to waste all that time and have another villager move in that you do not want. Now that we've got her fully moved out, there is a flip side to this. You only have 24 hours to invite another villager to your island, or the game's going to invite one for you. I've done a lot of testing, and it seems after 24 hours, even if I'm not connected to the internet, somebody will purchase this plot of land. I don't know if it has to do with your star rating, because I have been testing this all when I had 5 stars. But even when disconnected from the internet, after 24 hours or right into the next day, somebody always seems to move into here. I don't know if that's a 100% chance, but for me, it has happened 100% of the time if I didn't invite somebody in before the next day. So you seem to have one day to move somebody in. But now we're going to get into the next method, which if you don't know this, if you have 10 villagers on your island, you can still get villagers that come visit your campsite, but very, very rarely. And they will try to replace one of your villagers if you want them to. And there's a trick that you need to know to make sure they replace the correct one. So you know you get a new campsite visitor because you're going to go talk to Isabelle. And during her introduction to your day, she's going to tell you that instead of a big announcement, you're going to have somebody hanging out at your campsite. Now, this happens very rarely, at least for me. I've only seen it happen 3 times in all of the testing that I've been doing. But we're going to try and explain the process here. I've been trying to get this to happen again, and I haven't had any luck, but I do know how the process works. Now, what I recommend doing once this happens is leave your house and then immediately go to residential services and talk to Isabelle. Once you talk to Isabelle, I highly recommend going to discuss a resident. This doesn't seem to do anything for literally anything else in the game, except for when you have a campsite visitor. So what you're going to do is just complain about somebody, because the visitor is going to talk to resident services and recommend somebody for them to ask to move. And you want to make sure that they ask somebody that you actually want to get rid of, because you only have one chance for this to work. So we're going to complain about Stu. Now, once you've complained to Stu, you're going to run to your campsite, and obviously there would be a tent here, but you all have been asking me to get this video out, and this was the process that was taking me so long to actually be able to get this video out, because it happens so rarely that a visitor will come when you have 10 or more people on your island, but it does happen. Now, if you don't talk to resident services, they're going to select somebody at random. But since you have now talked to resident services, you're going to talk to them until they start mentioning about living on the island. You're going to ask them to move to your island, and then they're going to go talk to resident services. They're going to come back, and then they're going to tell you who resident services told them to ask you to get rid of. Now, this could be somebody that you actually want to keep, or hopefully what's going to happen is it's going to be the person that you complained to at resident services. This should work, but I cannot confirm that it works 100% of the time, but it's worked for me and it's worked for other people. But I cannot say for certain that it'll work 100% of the time, but you do only have one shot. Once they talk to resident services, you have the option to say no to who they want to kick out, or you say yes, and then they will kick that person out. But you only have one shot at it. You can't say no and then ask them to find somebody else. It is a one and done. Now, that is the only other guaranteed method of getting a villager out of your island and replacing it with somebody new. It's a completely random chance for who moves into the campsite, and it might actually never be anybody that you actually want to move in, but it is an interesting bit of information if it ever happens to you. Now for the method that actually works. This is going to involve time traveling and has a very high chance of successfully kicking out the villager that you want to without wasting weeks and months of your time and hoping that the right villager leaves. We're going to be using the same exact process as the longer version of this, which means we're going to fence in Stu's house here. And then we're going to skip a day so that way he is outside of his fence, and then we're going to go on with the rest of the process. So once you have fully fenced in Stu's house, he's not going to show up in there until we go ahead and just save and completely close the game. Before you close the game, you need this to pop up. Once that pops up, you can go home, hit X to fully close the game. This will not work unless it's fully closed. Then you're going to go to your settings. You're going to scroll all the way down, go to system, date and time. You're going to push the day forward just one. And you know what? We're going to put it down to 1 o'clock. Villagers seem to leave more often than not between 12 p.m. and 3 p.m. I don't know if that's just like conspiracy or not. It just seems to be more often when they want to move out. I don't know. Oh, well, isn't that lucky? During recording all of this, I had been completely ignoring Mint, and we finally got her to the point of wanting to actually leave, which is fantastic, but that's not really what we wanted to record right now. What we wanted to go over was that once you skip the one day after putting the fence around, the character that you want to leave will be stuck inside of their fence. That's exactly what you want. Once they're stuck inside of their fence, go talk to every single other villager but the one that you want to make leave. Once you've done this, then you're going to save and close your game, and we're going to get to the next part. I'm going to go kick out Mint right now, though. Now that we've got our game closed, we're going to do exactly what we did before, but we're going to skip a different number of days. If you remember what I said earlier, that they usually want to leave after 15 days. So we're going to go ahead and put this actually down to May 1st. How many days are actually in April? Yeah, okay, so we're going to go to May 1st, and we're going to leave it at the same time, so about 1 p.m., and then we're going to load back in and see if they're ready to leave. Like I said, it takes about 15 days for this to work, but for you, it's going to take a few minutes. Now, if your villager looks still pretty happy like mine does, don't be surprised. All we need to do here is just talk to everybody again just to be safe, and then we're going to save and close, and then we're only going to skip one day this time. Now, I do want to mention that at any point during this process, even if you're doing the best possible scenario for trying to get one villager to leave and keep all of your others, randomly one will decide to leave that you actually don't want to leave. And you don't have to worry about that, because all you have to do is say, no, hey, you're staying here, I'm going to kidnap you, and you're not allowed to ever leave. So during this process, I had done this to Stu and to Audie, not because I necessarily wanted to get rid of Audie, but I know a bunch of my members wanted her, and we did get Audie on our Southern Hemisphere island, and as I mentioned during that live stream, if we ever got Audie to leave, we would give her to one of our members, because there's no reason for us to have two Audies, so we're going to let this one go. I really wanted to get rid of Stu first, but since we were doing two different villagers with this process, Audie decided to leave, But this is going to be the fastest way to get it to work, by time traveling, obviously, using all of these best practiced methods. Words are hard and the struggle is real. You'll be able to get the villagers that you want to leave more effectively, but that doesn't mean it's always 100% going to work. The game definitely does actually want you to use amiibo cards for that 100% assurance that you kick out the villager that you want to kick out. But I am sad to see Audie leave this island because I quite like her as a villager, but we do have another Audie on our other island. So we're going to let her go to one of our members. I'm actually going to post in the Discord now, for first person to come pick her up gets to keep her. So congratulations to one of our members for getting to have Audie. I hope you give her a wonderful home. And I do hope this video helped all of you understand the process for getting rid of villagers. Anything else that you've heard is just a rumor, and these are the best ways to get rid of them. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for the support, and I'll see you all in the next one.